My name is Andrea. I'm from the west coast of Canada on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And was born and raised here. Moved all over, but wound up back here to raise my own kids because it's a beautiful place.
So, Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about your story and your life with the brain injury?
Yeah. So I was 18 when I was in a car accident. I had just graduated high school. I was 5 days away from moving to Toronto to start work and my post-secondary education, college. I kind of wish that, I had a story of like we were partying hard, but no, it was just me and a few friends. We were driving to Blockbuster to go rent some video games for the night. And, my friend made a mistake and went through a red light, and we got T-boned by a bigger truck. And I got the brunt of that hit, rendered me unconscious. They took me to the hospital for CT scans on my head. I had cuts on my forehead, blood coming out of my mouth. So there's obvious damage to my head. So they saw on the scan that I had a basal skull fracture and then also swelling of my brain up in the left frontal lobe. So I was in the ICU for about 5 or 6 days. So I missed my flight to Toronto. I was in a hospital bed. I was just sort of in and out of consciousness. They had the coma scale. I was registering on the coma scale for many days. And then after that, I was fully conscious, but still like just numb to the world. Spent about another week in the hospital, just sort of recovering. I was dizzy every time I stood up. My memory was terrible. So I had amnesia from everything before the accident, and then all the 5 days after. And so, yeah, people were telling me, you're supposed to go to Toronto, you're supposed to start this life. And I had that adrenaline in me, like, okay, let's get out of this hospital bed. Let's get on a plane. That's where I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be here. But, I was still living at home with my parents. And so they were the ones who were like, well, no, something's not right. You can't go. So, I pushed it off. Okay, in 4 months, I'm going to go. I'll give you 4 months
Mhm.
to get used to this. And, it was a small town. So my doctor was like, there's not much we can do. I didn't see an occupational therapist for, I think, 5 months after. About 4 months, my parents were like, something's not right. She's not speaking properly. And I
Wow.
had pretty extensive damage to my tongue. I had bit the side of it, so the muscle was damaged. One of my cranial nerves was damaged as well. So they're like, well, we can't tell if it's her speech or if it's just the damage to the tongue. And so you just got to give it time, basically. But my parents were the ones who were adamant, who were like, no, there's something else that's not right. Her speech is not right. As having memory problems too. And so my parents didn't want me to move across the country by myself.
Mhm.
But I was 18. All my friends had left for university, and I was just left in this small town. And I'm just like, no, I need to go. I need to get out of here. And so we came to an agreement where I moved to a larger city, Victoria, which is on the south of the island, which had better doctors, better care, and also had the outpatient rehabilitation for head injuries.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and that's when I saw an occupational therapist finally who said, yes, you have, word retrieval issues and other issues. And so they signed me up for the outpatient program, but it was going to be a few months. So, it's like, okay, well, I'll get a job while I wait. And because after a brain injury, you can really only see what's different by doing the things that you used to do. While I was fresh out of high
Yeah, yeah.
school, I had never worked a job. So I was like, well, let me do something and see what the problems are. So I got fired from a couple jobs, but that really showed me, okay, where my issues are.
Okay.
And then I also worked with a neuropsychologist who was really able to like test me and show me where the issues were and what needed to be worked on. It just sort of gave me an outline of like what the injury affected. And so there was, yeah, a lot of like memory, facial recognition was like one of my worst. I was like in the 10% range of facial recognition, which really concerned me. Like, yeah, I would meet someone and then I'd go see them again and not know who they were. And that kind of scared me to be that bad at it. And then I realized, yeah, like I can't picture faces in my mind anymore. And so, anyways, fast forward to getting into the outpatient program. That's sort of like when they diagnosed me with aphasia. And, at the time, I'm like, what?
What's the
Aphasia? Like,
Yeah.
I don't, and then, I don't remember that word to like, okay, that's what I'm diagnosed with. I'd have to go
Excuse
back
me?
into my notes and like, okay, yes, aphasia. That's what I have, aphasia. But at the time, it was like, it was word finding problems was
Okay.
sort of what it was basically put as. And
Thanks.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
word finding problems, I can deal with that. And
okay.
like, I'll just walk around with a thesaurus and like
Yeah, right.
think of a word that's like similar to what the word that I'm trying to figure out. And maybe, I'll connect the dots eventually. But that, yeah,
So,
that
so
didn't.
you saying that, like, what do you wish more people would understand or understood more about aphasia?
Well, here's the thing is, it's different day to day for some people where we can have a good day and it doesn't seem like, anything's wrong. But then the bad days hit. It's just getting through those bad days, you know, people just need to have patience and understanding. And it's hard to get through those days when people are impatient. And yeah,
And I'm honestly a bit shocked and a bit surprised, and I'm very proud of you because you went through that whole scenario almost. Of course, your family helps a lot. But like, you did this a lot of it independently. It's pretty amazing going through all these situations and like somewhat directing yourself, which nowadays they would not think that was a good idea. And like
yeah,
you went through it, and like it's pretty amazing.
yeah. Like I was always very independent. Like I was set to move to Toronto by myself and just go figure it out. And so I think my parents kind of knew they couldn't really stop me. Like I was 18 and I was going to go if I needed to go.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, no, it was incredibly stupid of me.
I
Like,
mean, yeah. Maybe at the time it doesn't matter though. It's already done. You've done it, and it's you've done incredible from
yeah.
my perspective.
But like I didn't have the doctor to say, "Hey, don't drink, don't do drugs. You just had a brain injury." And I'm 18. All my friends are in university. We're having dorm parties. Like I'm trying to
Okay,
get back to the life that I had.
yeah.
And so, I'm drinking alcohol and then realizing
Initially,
what it does to you when you have a brain injury. I had to learn that on my own. No doctor could like really stop me from doing that.
from my experience, I haven't drank, thankfully, but from what I've heard from a doctor is that after a severe TBI, is really any TBI, you have your brain is a lot more sensitive. Did you feel that?
Yeah. And, and then the bad days with the TBI, you feel like you're drunk anyways. So it's like, the world's moving and you're slurring your speech and it's like and I had, a lot of times where people thought I was drunk. And like at work, I had people like customers that would go to my manager and be like, I think your employee might be drunk.
My gosh.
And my
Wow.
manager would come over to me and sort of
Wow.
assess me. Like, no, she's
Wow.
fine. She's because they knew me at that point. They did all the wrong things and I learned from it. And then eventually, when I saw the right doctors and went through rehabilitation programs, I learned so much at that time that I wish I knew sooner. It felt like I had wasted a year of my life because I didn't get into that program right away. I didn't do
Uh,
right things after recovery because in the hospital, it's a small town hospital. Nobody saw me and said, okay, you have a brain injury. This is what your life is going to be. Or even concussion protocol is so different now.
yeah.
It's like I wasn't told, or if I was told, I didn't remember.
Yeah. Right. And I mean,
Like, write it down,
from
write it on my arm. Like, don't give me a piece of paper. I'll forget where I put the piece of paper.
from what you told me, you're working on a book, and I think I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts and your story. What you've been through, down to the details of it. 'Cause, like, you're working on a book, correct?
I am. So it's going to cover a lot. So I had amnesia from my car accident, but
Hmm.
it's not one of those like beautiful stories of amnesia where you wake up from a coma and you just don't remember anything. There's different levels of amnesia too, and so it's like, okay, I can remember my parents, I can remember what my name is, I can, so it took years to figure out what it was that I couldn't remember and what was missing from the memories that I did regain. And so I finally figured it out, and it's like that emotional. So yeah, there's that part of the story, and then there's the recovery of the first few years, and then going to school after I went through my rehabilitation program and sort of like trying to enter the world as somebody who is rehabilitated from a brain injury and trying to go into the line of work which I wanted to do, which was concerts, which music and lights don't really go with a brain
They're really
injury.
match,
But
but yeah, right.
I tried to do it, and I tried to find things that would allow me to do it. So there's lots of different things that I tried. When I didn't want to accept that I had a brain injury and that I was limited, I tried, different diets, different drugs, prescription and non-prescription. And so I went through all of the ups and downs of all of those things to finally, like, I wouldn't say give up, but just trying to find a different happiness in life if I couldn't have the dream career that I wanted and that I worked so hard for. Anyways, so yeah.
No, that's, I mean,
And then
that's good.
also
That's beautiful.
another side of the book is going to be relationships. I met my husband after my car accident. Um,
Okay.
so the relationship that I have with him, we've been married 17 years and we've gone through a lot of ups and downs. And now we have kids together. And so traumatic brain injury with kids, um,
Whole other level.
yeah, it's its own like book by itself
Oh
because
God.
the hormones and the things that go through your body when you're pregnant, it
Mm.
felt like it took the brain injury away. And then
Interesting. That is very interesting.
the mom brain that you get when
Uh,
you have this little infant, it's like, this is nothing compared to the brain injury that I went through. And then all those hormones go away after a couple of years. You stop breastfeeding and you're back to normal. And you're like, yeah, like, you got to deal with all this again. Like, okay, this is what life is, where every day is just sort of its own adventure.
so, what helped you the most in your recovery, during your like in your recovery and currently, like daily life?
You're going to hear this a lot and you may or may not take it to heart, but I'm going to tell you, mindfulness and meditation.
Interesting. Okay.
It changed everything because, when you have a brain injury, there's this grief that you have to go through. of not who I used to be. My brain doesn't function the way it used to. But you come to this realization that your mind and your brain are two different things. And when your brain's malfunctioning, you still have your mind. And your mind can, if you use mindfulness, you can just retreat into your mind and turn off your brain, and just sort of, it helps you with recovery, regrouping when you're having a bad day. It's nice to just be able to go somewhere in your mind and relax there. It helps with neuroplasticity. When I had my injury, neuroplasticity was like this brand new thing that they were starting to study. And so, they sort of gave me little clues about, hey, this can help you. But I just sort of took it and ran. Like, I'm like, creative visualization. What were other things? The Secret was one, like visualizing sort of what you want in life. Even like with my speech, I would, sing along to songs in my head just to have the flow of words
Okay.
be natural. And like when it comes out, okay, it doesn't come out as a nice flow, but in my mind I can make it a nice flow. And so that's sort of creating new neural pathways to sometimes when I'm talking, it can come out as a nice flow. So just, in my mind, I cannot have all these problems that I have on the outside. So it's just nice to go there. And then that also, helps you connect with other people who have brain injury. When they're having a bad day, you can just sort of be like, I understand where you're at, and you can just sort of help them center themselves as well and calm down. So yes, mindfulness, meditation, being grateful for what you do have. When I went into the rehabilitation program, there was like a dozen of us that were going through the program at the same time. And some of them were in wheelchairs, some of them lost the use of half of their body. And it's just like, I felt like an imposter syndrome. I don't belong here. I'm not as bad as these people.
Okay.
They have it worse because they have injuries that are on the outside. So like I felt like I was taking up the spot of somebody who needed it more. But there's this other guy there who had suffered a stroke, and so he had no external injuries as well. And so we went through the program together, and he understood sort of that imposter feeling of like,
Yeah.
this seat belongs to somebody who's more severe. But then, we would connect about what we were going through, and just sort of like, okay, we kind of do need this rehabilitation program.
Yeah. I
We
mean,
both have like these same issues. Anyways, he was just such a positive person that, he taught me to be grateful that, we still have the use of all of our limbs. We still, are able to walk and sometimes run and, do all these things. And so, we started this social program, BIBS, Brain Injury Buddies. And it was just a
nice.
group of all of us. We'd just go out and do things together and,
It's
just
awesome.
relate our own stories of what we're struggling with. And yeah, to know that some people do struggle more, but that doesn't make my struggle insignificant or any less.
Yeah. And basically, there's no comparisons.
Yeah.
And is this brain injury buddies specifically in where you are in Canada?
Well, it was just at the time of the rehab program. And then, so when I left the program, I went to school, and so we lost contact. I have the head injury support group here locally. So I got a new set of bibs. We do
New
cooking
system.
class.
I
We
like how
do
you
cook.
call it that.
We got cooking every week. We cook together, and it's just nice
Oh, that's awesome.
to socialize with people
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
understand what you're going through. And you can have a bad day and be open and honest with them. You don't have to hide it. And then we do yoga as well and mindful yoga. And it's great to just, you know,
That's very soothing. This
yeah.
I love that. So if if there was a fellow survivor, either from that's had this brain injury for a long time, for a while, such as yourself, or someone who's recently acquired it and going through a issue of such as the imposter syndrome, stuff like that, what would you say to that survivor who feels frustrated, alone, or misunderstood?
Take it day by day, focus on yourself because every day is different. You're going to have bad days, you're going to have good days. You know, a bad day, I call them bad brain days because it's not a bad day. The sun could be shining. There are other things to appreciate about the world and the day, but a bad brain day is just your body telling you you need rest, you need to regroup and to just shut off for a while. So it's like you have to prioritize the things that need to get done and just get through the day. And then tomorrow you can start again. And yeah, definitely find your people. Find people in your city who have brain injuries who you can relate to or even online. There's yeah, the whole world's open to you online now. So find somebody out there who is open about having a brain injury, who wants to talk about it, who you can talk to and just send them a message. And like I've met a few people out there now just by putting out that, okay, I'm a brain injury survivor, 20 plus years experience with it, message me. And people have messaged me, and it's great to hear from them and just sort of connect. And, you know, sometimes I'll have some advice on things, sometimes I
Mhm.
won't. You know, everybody's situation is different, but I'm an ear and somebody who can listen that, like, I know that your life has changed and nobody's going to get that. Everybody's life is still going on the same way, but your life changed because of the injury, and nobody's going to get that because it's internal. It's, you know, you can't see a brain injury, which is hard.
Andrea, I'm currently walking around this nice lake, and your words, the way you're describing all this, it's very soothing, and it's you've calmed me down. I love what you're
Namaste.
saying and what no, namaste, yeah, yeah. If I didn't say that right, namaste. I really appreciate you doing this, and I'm very interested in reading your book when it's time. When it's time, it'll take some time, maybe soon, maybe later. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter because whatever it comes out, I'm sure it'll be beautiful. And regardless,
yeah,
I'm excited to read it. I'm very happy to finally meet you virtually,
yeah.
and maybe
I,
someday when I go to Canada, I'll come see you and meet you in person. And the entire tribe appreciates you, and someone out there is going to appreciate listening to this interview. This because
I hope so. Yeah, totally. You know, reach out to me. I have lots of stories I could relate to things. You know, there's lots of like things that you go through when you have aphasia. It just sort of it hits you, and you're just lost for words. And I'm finally at the point of finding those words and describing what it's like. So yeah, it's hopefully it gives other people words to be able to relate their experiences to their friends and family. And, you know, I always say the funniest thing when I told my husband, you know, when we were first getting together, and I'm like, okay, this is a real relationship. We're starting to live together. I need to open up to this person about brain injury and aphasia. And, you know, it's like, okay, well, I have word finding issues, is what I told him. And he goes, well, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, shall we Google the
yeah,
definition of aphasia?
it's basically impossible to describe brain injuries through words.
Like, so it's definitely, there's been a long process of figuring each other out. And, you know, and even there was another thing he said to me when we first got together. I told him I had a brain injury, and that sort of, that was why, you know, we'd go into a store and I would get quiet.
Uh,
He didn't realize that, the lights, the people, the decision making, the trying to follow a list, all of that was affecting me. And he's like, I thought you were shoplifting.
of course.
And I was like, no, it's a brain injury. And so now, then I was like self-conscious every time I went into a store of like, okay, is loss prevention following me right now? Like, I'm not shoplifting. So I'm very obvious. I'm not shoplifting. But
Well,
you
Andrea,
get through those moments and it's just in the past, move forward to the next day and hopefully it'll be better.
well, Andrea, I'm very gonna look up into a place to do some namaste.
All right.
But I appreciate you doing this, and I'll try my best. I'd love to stay in contact,
Yeah.
and I will. And
Thank you. All right. We'll see you later.
thank.